Welcome to Spongy Bible Brainers from Beach Church. This is our daily Bible devotion. Tonight we peek at some marvelous accounts in chapters 22, 23, and 24 in Genesis. It's the famous account of Abraham obeying God, trusting God will keep his word about these countless descendants that Abraham is going to have, despite the fact that God just asked Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac on an altar. We also see the details of Abraham working out Sarah's burial and also getting a wife for Isaac. And this is done by Abraham's faithful servant, as well as the faithfulness of Rebekah in response to this invitation. Isn't it wonderful to read these engaging accounts of the events of God forming a nation that will eventually be a light to all the nations as he works with these patriarchs and matriarchs of Israel? Enjoy it. The history books are coming up and they're challenging to read. Anyway, here's my focus for this evening. As usual, I expect that you will have read or will read these three chapters for yourselves. And I'm just trying to follow God's lead and shed some light to provide a little more understanding than we had before. And I want to do that in this way this evening. Here are two brief stories about my mother and father when they were young to illustrate good character, because I think a theme of these accounts in Genesis highlight the importance of good character. The first story is about my dad. He was the youngest of 14 children, born in Baltimore in 1925. He grew up in East Baltimore, where his father ran a corner bar and he lived in the rooms above the bar. The story is that out on the tough and tumble streets, not far from the wharves of that seaport town, my dad was the only kid on the street who didn't use cuss words. He wasn't vulgar in speech. Why? He didn't want it to get back to his mother, which he knew would disappoint her and hurt her feelings. Can you imagine the language he heard at the bar and on the streets and down by the wharves? Yet out of respect for his mom, he refrained from vulgarity. Now that's good character. And he maintained that through his life, even when I was a little boy helping him with do-it-yourself projects at home and he'd hit his thumb with a hammer. The worst I heard from him was an occasional hell or damn. I learned all the other really bad words on the playground at school. Fast forward a few years, and it's a similar story with my mother. During World War II, my mom and dad were married in 1942. My dad shipped out in the U.S. Navy, not to return for 3 years. Like many women holding down the fort at home, any letter from overseas was a special gift to share with others in the family. My mom was also in tune with her mother-in-law's feelings, so much so that she would never share that she received a letter from my dad, unless my dad had also sent one to his mother. My mom didn't want her mother-in-law to feel left out if my mom got a letter and she did not. That's good character too. So the characters in today's reading showed similar good character traits of faithfulness, loyalty, and obedience to God and to one another. Abraham, despite his former mistakes at passing his wife off as his sister, amazingly trusts God on the call to sacrifice his one and only biological son, assuming that God will keep the promise to Abraham about all those descendants. And then Abraham, it seems insignificant the way he barters for a burial place for Sarah's remains, but it's the way he does it. He's responsible to his neighbors. He's honoring his wife. He's trying to keep within local economic traditions. And the outcome of that is not only that he finds a suitable burial place for Sarah, but also that at this point, he's no longer the nomad Abraham. He now owns a piece of land in the promised land. That's an interesting thought. I never noticed that before or gave that any thought. Also, now we switch to Abraham's servant. Remember, he sends a servant out to find a wife for his son Isaac and sends him off to his relative Laban. And This servant faithfully carries out his master's orders to the letter and with urgency, even though good old Laban, whom we will learn later as an example of poor character, even though Laban tries to deter him. Keep in mind, this servant could have inherited all of Abraham's wealth, if not, if Abraham and Sarah had not had any children, this servant would have inherited everything. He had reason to be jealous of Isaac, but he was faithful to his master's directions about this. That's good character. And then we think about Rebecca, her servant hearted, faithful character on full display as she waters the camels and follows tradition in helping strangers and then trusting the stranger's amazing invitation to walk away from her family to a man she doesn't even know yet to become his wife. Now, that's the kind of character we want to have, and it's the kind of character we would love to pass on to our children, right? But let me add a gospel addendum to this truth. Good character matters, but sin will always trump that. We all have flaws, even the best of us, even people of exceptional character are sinners. And sometimes they make terrible mistakes. A little later on, Isaac and Rebekah will illustrate this with their sons Esau and Jacob. So here's the message. While sin trumps good character, God's grace trumps sin, as God's character is imputed into us through faith in Jesus Christ by the power of the Holy Spirit. And that's the good news this evening. All right, everybody. God bless you. Hope to see you at church.